Next point on Pro Soccer Talk this week, gents. Big talking point, of course. 1 week to go in the transfer window. Latest transfer news, some big names linked. Cristiano Ronaldo, Kylian Mbappe, Harry Kane. There's talk of all three of those superstars potentially moving on in the last week of the window. The clock is ticking now. I mean, August 31st, 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's the deadline. We've got a special deadline day show on NBC Sports' platform, so look out for that one. But let's start with the Cristiano Ronaldo reports. Nick Mendola didn't start for Juventus in their Serie A opener. Talks of a lot of reports that he wants to move. He has 1 year left on his contract at Juve. Do you think he'll go somewhere now? And where actually could he go? Because it's late in the window, and as we know, he earns a lot of money, and a lot of teams probably cannot afford him right now.
So I saw a report yesterday that only one team could get him, and I think the answer is really two. The first one is the only team that could afford him really right now would be Man City. That they have the opening and the understanding to get him, and that he would be okay to go there. The thing that flipped the script for me, though, is realizing that if Kylian Mbappe goes to Real Madrid and for an incredible price tag, then guess who can afford him? PSG. Now, I am almost rooting for Man City, and I'll tell you why. I think Ronaldo is beloved by three groups of supporters, maybe a little bit Juventus right now. And I'm talking the big European leagues, because obviously Sporting Lisbon, they love him. Real Madrid and Manchester United. He's still held up as one of their own. If he were to go to Man City, he'd be chopping one of those right off. And he's so close to just being only liked by Real Madrid. I think that is probably the answer, though, is PSG is really the only option that really makes any amount of sense, and only if they sell Mbappe. I don't mean to divert us here, Joe. I still love the idea of, I told you this in May, Lewandowski winding up at Man City. I really want it. I think he's the perfect fit.
That would be interesting. Andy, I mean, what's your take on this Ronaldo, potentially Kylian Mbappe situation? Because Mbappe's out of contract to PSG next summer. So they run the risk of, if they wait until January, he can agree with a non-French team to sign a pre-contract and leave for absolutely nothing, which is incredible to think about. So maybe they might move on Mbappe, right? And late in the window to try and at least get some kind of transfer fee for him. And maybe that's why they signed Messi all along, because they knew they might not be able to keep Mbappe.
Yeah, when you're shopping at the very, very top of the game, the options are limited. And so it might seem like they get recycled around a little bit, and the same rumors come up for multiple different teams and clubs and everything. I find it just really interesting that right now, pick the top 10 best players in the world, 5 or 6, maybe 7 of them are either have already moved this summer or are heavily linked and rumored to be in the process of trying to engineer a move right now. It's been so long since these players at the very top of the game, I'm talking Messi and Ronaldo for a number of years, Xavi and Iniesta when they were at the very, very height of their game, and anybody that has tried to challenge those two at the top, they were untouchable for years and years and years, and suddenly they've reached an age where they're available and they begin to start to move around and flow through the transfer market just a little bit. So I would imagine, I don't see how Mbappe can finish the season at PSG. I don't see how they can not get something for a player of that age and that talent, knowing that he will leave for free probably in a year's time. So I would expect to see him move. That does then open the door for Ronaldo to go to PSG. I don't think it's a great fit, just from a personality perspective. When you have that many, it would be fun to watch. It would be a great reality TV show. But if the objective is to go out and win football matches, I don't know that all of those personalities together is going to be the best way to achieve that. But didn't somebody here, was it one of you two, I think, back in the spring or so, mentioned Ronaldo, Messi joining up at the same place, and maybe that place being PSG? Was that you, Nick?
It was.
Okay. Well, we're one move away from that actually happening, as crazy as that sounded at the time.
Wow. That would be something. I mean, everyone would just be watching every single PSG game, because you cannot miss that. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or season, or 2 seasons, whatever it would be. But, yeah, the reports from our partners in Sky Sports in the UK, the latest reports are saying that some agents are actually working on that situation right now. Mbappe to Real Madrid and Ronaldo to PSG, and trying to get that through the works and sorting out the contracts and can they get it done? Because obviously there is a situation there where that almost works for everyone. But again, I'm not sure how PSG can actually do that. But they definitely will find a way with the players they brought in this summer is Wijnaldum, Ramos, Hakimi, Donnarumma, Messi, and now potentially Ronaldo. I mean, that goes down as just one of the greatest teams of all time and one of the greatest transfer window of all time if they can actually pull that off. But Manchester City would make some sense, but I just don't know if I see that happening with his connections to Manchester United, and also just the fact that I think Pep quite likes playing with 6 attacking midfielders rather than a striker. He sees it as a challenge, and the way that he actually wants to play football is with more attacking midfielders running around. And I don't think he really cares if he doesn't have a forward, but he's not going to turn down having Cristiano Ronaldo or Harry Kane, who we're going to talk about a little bit as well in the end of this segment. But Nick Mendola, to change gears a little bit, US men's national team players who could be on the move. Weston McKennie's been linked to a move to Tottenham Hotspur. I've got some information on this. I've been told by sources close to McKennie that he's very happy at Juventus right now. So that is the situation where he's coming from. But the latest reports are suggesting that Tanguy Ndombele at Tottenham is not happy. He wants to leave. Juventus may want him. There could be a swap deal there. Or maybe Moussa Sissoko, but some of those reports have been, slammed today and saying that's not going to happen. But Juve would be happy to accept around $35 million for Weston McKennie if he wanted to leave and if a club came in with that offer. Weston McKennie is a fantastic player. I just worry about him at Juve this season with Allegri coming in, Aaron Ramsey, obviously Locatelli signed. There's a lot of players there fighting for those central midfield spots. And I don't know if he starts week in, week out. Is he better off maybe going to a Tottenham, be it on loan or permanently, playing week in, week out, which I think he probably would do alongside Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in that team. What do you think of this situation for McKennie? Because he'd be swapping a Champions League team, a giant in Italy, but he'd be going to the Premier League. So I feel like it's kind of a good trade-off.
See, I could see both sides of the coin. If I'm McKennie, one of the things I'm thinking is I went to Italy. I probably only maybe he expected to play for Juve for 10 years. But while there, I want to win. I'm at the biggest club there. I want to win. And there's a bit of a mission not accomplished. He's became friends and teammates with some very good young players and some of the best players in the world. And there's an opportunity with him. You look at Dybala, you look at Locatelli, you look at so many fantastic players. I wonder if he's not thinking, I've got something to prove here. I want to go to Italy and then leave Italy saying I did it. I got it done there. On the flip side, the point you make, and again, maybe Oliver Skip is fantastic. The opportunity to move to London, where one of your best friends is Christian Pulisic, potentially just run amok because you know that Højbjerg's got it locked down for you next to you. That is really something I hadn't thought about, and I think is fantastic. And don't forget this. I think I read it in our article, actually, but Paratici was a big part of getting him to Juve, from what I understand, that he was very high on McKennie. And he would have seen McKennie, remember this, at Schalke playing pretty much every position they have. So I guess that's also a boon if we talk about the Juve angle, because if he can't get in the middle of the pitch, maybe they use him somewhere else. But both of them would make sense to me. I think he stays, and I think he probably wants to stay.
I agree with that. But yeah, Paratici obviously is a big fan of him, was in charge at Juve, their transfer business, got him in from Schalke. And I think Tottenham as well, just they need that extra cover in a lot of areas. So it's a great point. A player that can play multiple positions, fullback, midfield, even centre-back at a push. That would be a very good buy for Nuno Espirito Santo, because as we saw with Wolves and his other teams, he flip-flops between 3 at the back, 4 at back 4, and McKennie's a very flexible player. And after Christian Pulisic, you have to say over the last 12 months, he has elevated himself to that level as the next best American player with his personality, again, his flexibility, the way he plays, the way he leads, and how well he did at Juve. As you said, I don't think any of us expected him to do that well in his first season in Turin. So, and he took that to the US men's national team over the summer. Nations League, obviously that success against Mexico, and the US will be leaning on him heavily in World Cup qualifiers coming up. Talk about US men's national team then. What other American players can we expect to be on the move late on in the transfer window, Andy? Because Reggie Cannon's been linked with a move to Nottingham Forest from Boa Vista. Eric Palmer-Brown, I know some of his agents have been in England trying to get him a loan move away from Manchester City once again, and maybe to Venezia and Serie A, who have a lot of great young American players, almost stockpiling them there on their arrival in Serie A. Maybe Cameron Carter-Vickers as well, maybe another loan move for him. Yeah. There's a few players that we could see from an American perspective moving on late in the window.
Yeah, I think the most important one that you mentioned there would be Reggie Cannon, because he does factor pretty immediately into the first team situation for the U.S. men's national team. With World Cup qualifiers just a couple weeks away, he's either going to start at right back and Serginho Dest will play on the left, or Cannon will be the backup right back to Dest on the right, at which point another player who probably could use a move and probably deserves a move at this point, if we're just honest, will start at left back, and that's Anthony Robinson, who is still at Fulham after they were relegated back to the Championship. He's been good in the first handful of games for them. He was pretty good last year in a team that didn't do a lot of defending, that didn't defend well even when they tried. I felt like he stood out and shined a little bit brighter than everyone else, especially on the back line for Fulham. And so I was a little bit shocked that he didn't get a move earlier in the summer transfer window. Obviously, there's still time, but he's young. He plays a position where there's not a ton of options. He's a U.S. international. There's just a lot of selling points with Anthony Robinson. I don't quite get why this has not happened for him yet. He's a middle of the table or slightly bottom half Premier League left back. Like that he's proven that that's what he is, and so that's the level that he should be at. There's a handful of teams in the Premier League that he could certainly help, and you have to think he would be available for what, 3 or 4, maybe 5 million right before the window closes. That would be a great deal for some team in the Premier League.
I agree with that. That's a great shout. All right, let's have some fun to finish with. The clock is ticking, guys. The clock is ticking. Transfer window just 1 week away from ending. Harry Kane, it's been a summer-long saga. Will he go? Will he stay? I'm going to give you both 30 seconds to tell me if you think he will be a Tottenham Hotspur player when the window shuts and why. Nick Mendola, your 30 seconds starts now. What's going to happen with Harry Kane?
I think he stays, and I'll tell you why. I think he's the sort of guy who is humble enough, who respects where he is enough to have a mea culpa moment and come back to Spurs fans and say, listen, I'm encouraged by what we've built here. I think it can be done here. I'm looking at what Nuno's done. Let's give it another run. And I just think he's the sort of guy who's shown that sort of culpability. Is that the right word? I think he's shown that sort of respect. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes.
30 seconds is up.
Yeah, that's it. Look at you.
That's it. I'm sorry. I'm a strict taskmaster here. Andy Edwards, your 30 seconds starts now.
Harry Kane is still a Spurs player because Manchester City are not going to come and spend the money that Daniel Levy is going to demand to make Harry Kane no longer a Spurs player. And at this point of the saga, I've come all the way around to the point of I feel really bad for Harry Kane. I feel like he looks like a man that's out on an island, stranded all by himself, and nobody really wants to talk to him. Everybody seems like they're mad at him. He knows that he has messed up at this point and not done it right. And if he can do what Nick says, score some goals, all will be fine, and nobody will remember any of this happened.
Bang on 30 seconds. So fair play to you for wrapping it up like that. I agree with both of you. I think he'll still be a Tottenham Hotspur player. I think he's going to stay. I don't think Man City can really afford, but who knows what's going to happen in the last week of the window. There's some other players I guess we could focus on in terms of moving on. There's a lot of Arsenal players who think look like they're going to move on. Lacazette, maybe Willian, Hector Bellerin, Saul from Atletico Madrid and Kieran Trippier have been linked with moves to the Premier League. So there's a lot of big names there to keep an eye on in the final week of the window. And here at Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com, we'll keep you updated with all the latest transfer news, analysis. And again, August 31st, 6 p.m. Eastern time, the window slams shut, and then teams will be stuck with the players they have from a positive or negative until it opens again, the transfer window on January 1st. So it's going to be a fun week, guys. It's got a lot of long nights, a lot of transfer reports and rumors. It's going to be interesting to see if clubs panic late in the transfer window.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.